The project Managing Eden began about 20 years ago, and it started with some questions that I had about how we are in relationship to nature. How do we define nature? What does it look like when we're in contact with nature? And why do we manage nature the way that we do? The project started with hunting, and I was curious about how hunting is a management tool and what it physically looks like when we come in contact with such magnificent wildness. And it moved on into other areas that included wildlife conservation, scientists working in the field with animals, habitat manipulation, and an exploration of what is happening with specimens and museum collections. Through making this photographic work over 20 years, one thing that I have found to be extraordinary was the complexity of our relationship to nature. We work so hard to find what I think is an artificial balance between having wildness in our backyards and trying to manage it in such a way where we're comfortable in our environments. And it's full of paradox. When we are intervening, we're touching wildlife, we're trapping, banding, collaring wild animals, we're researching them, and yet we're trying to find places where they can be wild and live in free environments. And finding that balance is such an intriguing challenge for us on the planet. I also think it represents something about our stewardship of nature, represents something about our ability to manage our own future as human beings on the planet. Many of the photographs in the Managing Eden series actually show scientists, conservationists, people out in the field with their hands on nature in one way or another, holding it down, adding collars. And that image has become important to me because it really is a metaphor for the fact that we literally hold the future of wildness in our hands. Our power to bring it back to life, to even cause its extinction, is something I'm trying to get at in these photographs. And that type of image, for me, is a metaphor for our total control of nature. The mallard egg photograph was taken at the National Wildlife Research Center in Fort Collins, Colorado. And this is a research center that's devoted to really addressing conflicts between human beings and animal species. And because of the fact that we're now building really beautiful subdivisions and office parks with lots of green space and walkways and water, we've really designed perfect habitats for Canada geese. And with designing these perfect habitats has come an increase in the population of Canada geese. And the National Center for Wildlife Research is trying to figure out how to manage Canada geese populations in humane ways in response to complaints that people are making about Canada geese. Too many Canada geese in certain environments is not good for human health because they could be defecating on walkways and in waterways where children and families are playing. And so it does pose something of a threat. So the photograph represents contraceptive testing. And the idea of the contraceptive testing is to create a contraception or a pellet, a feed that they can give Canada geese in these large populations that they would eat. Canada geese would eat this feed, and they would produce eggs that would not have a viable yolk. And so it's something that's controllable. It could happen by the season. It's not a permanent change to that particular population, but a certain time period those eggs will not be viable. It's a way of reducing the number of birds in that particular environment. And I think it's fascinating the ways in which we're seeking humane ways to try to live with wildness in our backyard, which is ultimately something that we all want, and something that actually needs to be managed in order to find a balance that works to maintain wild populations and to address human concerns.